Welcome to the Theo Therapist Podcast, where theologically trained licensed therapists share health and healing conversations. Join our host, Dr. Catrice Glenn, for conversations about real-life issues from both theological and therapeutic perspectives. Each week, we speak to guiding questions with real-life application, humor, and engaging guests to share meaningful dialogues with our listeners. Let's begin.
Hello, everyone. Hi. I hope you are having a wonderful 2025. I'm Dr. Catrice Glenn, the host of the Theo Therapist Podcast, and we are launching season 3. It has been a great journey so far. We launched the Theo Therapist Podcast in 2023. And since then, it's just been a blessing to have so many different guests come and share their journeys and their passion and the intersection of theology and psychology as they see it. We've had people who are in private practice. We've had those who are in academia. We've had some who work in the church space, as well as even some people who do chaplaincy as well. And so this season is kicking off with another great opportunity. I'm really excited about the guests that we have coming up in season 3. I've already started booking well into our 4th and 5th episode. So I am excited about that. The topics you can look forward to this season include resilience and healing from trauma. We're going to look at Black mental health and suicidality. We're going to look at mental health with Black males. We're going to look at clergy mental health and just a host of other topics that I'm really excited about. And I can't wait to share that with you. There are just so many spaces for us to be able to talk about that intersection of healing that happens between faith and therapy. And so I'm glad that you're here. I hope that you'll engage today. We wanted to kick off season 3 with a live stream. And so we have an opportunity here to let you engage and you share. For those of you who are listening and watching this later, beyond the live stream, we thank you for staying with us. We're going to try to respond to any questions that might come up or anybody that has something that they might want to share. But for the most part, we're going to talk about the topic for today. I do want to give a bit of a disclaimer at the beginning. These podcasts are purely for information and entertainment. This is not a substitute for therapy. This is not to say that if you're struggling with something and you're having challenges, you shouldn't reach out for a therapist. I strongly encourage you, if you've not been to therapy or have a therapist, that even if you're feeling healthy, journeying with a therapist could be beneficial to you. So I strongly encourage therapy and you finding your own private space to be able to navigate what that looks like. So here we are beginning season 3. What emerged as today's topic came from so many numerous conversations I've had with people starting 2025. There seems to be an angst in the air. There is a general sense of either uneasiness or anxiety, or in some cases, fear that I'm encountering when I talk to people, either because of what's happening in our world, in our political landscape, what's happening on the news, with different tragedies that seem to be happening that we're hearing about more often. Whether it's the uncertainty of financial stability. There are lots of people who are losing jobs or have the potential of losing jobs. We have lots of change happening. And change is one of those things that can throw us off balance. It can be a destabilizer. And, I've talked to people who are genuinely afraid. They're afraid of what's happening and what's to come. And so when I sat down to try to think, what's a easy way to say this topic or to think about it, I just decided to be honest and to be genuine with what I'm encountering. People who say, I'm scared. And so today's topic is I'm scared. Let's talk about it. We're going to look at overcoming fear and anxiety, particularly in this current state of affairs where things feel so uncertain and things feel a little bit, shaky and destabilizing. So one of the things that I bring to this topic is that this is a subject that I talk to many of my clients regarding. A lot of my clients come in who are struggling with anxiety or depression or struggling with life transitions that trigger anxiety. One of the things I often tell them when that's the first subject we deal with is let's focus on what the thing we're afraid of is. I think once we can be honest and have the courage at what the boogeyman looks like, then we can figure out a way to navigate and to conquer what we need to conquer in the moment. And so, one of the things that I want to start off by talking about is just being honest with ourselves about any anxieties we might be feeling. If there are anxieties that we're feeling, it's important for us to recognize that that's normal, it's typical. There's always going to be some new thing in our life that throws us off a bit. Some of us adjust quicker to certain situations and circumstances, and others of us struggle in different ways. And then there's that one thing that might throw you off a little bit more than normal. And so I think the first thing is to name it. What is the thing that I'm really afraid of? What does the boogeyman look like? Often I tell people, what's the worst case scenario that you're trying to hide from or act like you don't know or you're not aware of? If we can start to break down what the actual boogeyman is, maybe what we can do then is figure out, okay, I'm afraid that, I work for the federal government and they're laying off people in this biggest wave of layoffs, and I don't know if it's going to be me and what that would mean for my family. Or, maybe the prices of everything are going up so high that you're not sure that you're going to make enough to support your family or support yourself. Perhaps it's a situation where you're worried about your rights being taken away or worried that, a mindset will emerge in this country that makes life dangerous for you or more dangerous. Those things, are very real. Those are very real situations that normally would trigger anxiety. It would trigger fear. If we can name that and go, okay, this is the thing that I'm actually worried about, then we can start to do something with that. Once we get past naming something, I think we get to a place of doing some assessment about the situation. Sometimes what we have to do is take a pause and recognize what can I actually control. I don't work in the White House. I can't control necessarily what's happening in the White House in this moment. I can't control the hiring managers and the firing managers. So I can't necessarily control who's going to determine my future in that aspect. I may not be able to make the cost of eggs go down. So that's outside my control. But I do have some things that I can genuinely control. I can control what I say. That means what I say and put in the world. What I say to myself as a self statement, whether I tell myself I'm defeated, I'm going to lose, I'm not going to make it, or whether I tell myself, you got this. You're going to take whatever comes at you and you're going to find a way forward. Or whether I tell myself, you are going to overcome everything that's set before you. What we say, we have control over. Beyond that, we also have control over what we do. Is there some action that I can do? Is there something I can do so that I don't feel so powerless? Is there something I can put in place? Something I can start doing with my hands or doing with my energy or doing with my intellect that can kind of change the situation that I'm in? I can control how I react to other people and other situations. Because there are going to be some situations that are they would just blow your mind, but you have to decide how you react to that. I kind of talked to some people and I was like, look, if your blood pressure goes up every time you read a new news article, what's going to happen to you month 3, month 4, month 5? Your blood pressure is going to be skyrocketed because it's going to create this kind of external fear that feels like it's overwhelming. So we can control to a degree how we react to certain information. We also can control what gets in. We can, to a degree, decide who gets to speak into our piece. Like, the side conversations that happen at the water cooler at work or with your friends on the phone or the ones at church. All those little conversations, you can decide to what degree you let the outside noise penetrate into what's going on in your peaceful existence. You also can decide how much intake to take of news and information. We're coming up on Lent season. This might be a good time to consider a social media fast. Not to bury your head in the sand, but maybe to pull back and pull away from things that might be too much information for you, because there are limits for us where it doesn't feel healthy anymore. So once we've asked ourselves the honest thing of what we were afraid of, and we've figured out what do we actually have control over, right? Then we have to look at where's our faith in the midst of this. You know, Sometimes with our faith walks, it is situations like this that really bring to the forefront what our religious coping looks like. The one thing that faith tends to give us is a sense of purpose and a sense of meaning. It gives us language to understand what this looks like. Is this suffering? Is this lamentation? Is this temptation? Like, what is going on in my spiritual life based on what's happening in my external world? Is this a fight of spirit, right? We wrestle not with flesh and blood, we wrestle with spirit. And so then, what is happening in this kind of spiritual realm that I'm getting affected by in my physicalness? We have to look at that. And then purpose. Even if things are not going the way we anticipated them going, is there perhaps some sense of purpose in what's happening in the world and what's happening in my world? Can I grow and become stronger and healthier and more empowered by what's happening? Is it possible that there is a space for me to become even more of who I was created to be based on what I'm fearing right now? Can it be used? Right? Is that not how our faith talks about it? Christ came to overcome the world, right? So then if I am to overcome something, obviously I have to face something. And so what does this look like? Sometimes people are concerned that if I'm so afraid and I'm so scared, then I'm not being faithful. Well, I think that's your humanity. We all are human. Fear happens within this body because fear is one of those protective instincts that happens. And life is saying there's so much happening, I'm afraid. Well, we can acknowledge that, but we don't have to stay there. We don't have to allow fear to take us over. We know that there's so many passages, particularly in Christian scripture, about fear and overcoming fear and getting beyond fear and going through fear to get and accomplish the things that are ahead of us. And so a part of it is recognizing that, your faith shines bright when they're fearful and anxiety producing situations. So lean in. This is a time to lean in and kind of grow in your space of faith. And then let's look at what can we change. So here I want to spend a little bit of time on what do we do with this? How do we go from feeling powerless, feeling like everything is happening to us, to get to a space where we feel empowered in this season and in this time? Well, first of all, your faith hopefully is helping you with that. But let me also add something to that. When it comes to the things that we can't control, one of the things that is going to help us feel most empowered is to focus on what I can do. So if it's writing my congressman, or if it's, being a part of a protest or a boycott, or if it's a part of making sure that I am proactive in talking to my directors and managers about what's happening in the world, or if I have the courage to have those hard conversations with my loved one that need to happen. Maybe I need to have the courage to speak up in a situation where I don't feel like I have power, so that at least my voice is in the room. Fighting and overcoming fear and anxiety means acknowledging what it is, figuring out what your resources are, figuring out what your options are, and then responding to that fear and anxiety with one of those options. we do have options. Sometimes they're not great. Sometimes they're not what we want. Sometimes they're not the best options, but we do have options. We can choose what to change and what we can do in our effort to change things. So it looks like I haven't gotten any comments yet from those who are watching and listening. I thank you for being here. I want to transition into talking about peace and finding peace. So once we've addressed fear and anxiety and we've looked at, okay, I know what makes me anxious and fearful in this season. I know what's outside my control. I know what I can control. I know how my faith empowers me to overcome the fear and the anxiety. I know that I have meaning and I have purpose that helps me understand what's happening here. Then the next thing is, how do we find and protect our peace? Finding and protecting our peace is kind of the last thing that I would leave you with today, because that's the thing that will help you navigate through all of the seasons of uncertainty that might be ahead of us. Philippians 4 and 6 through 7 reminds us that in everything, you know give prayer and supplication, and that anxiety is not of God. That's not the thing that we're to operate and live in. God would have us to have peace and that surpasses all understanding. One of the things that I hope that you will focus on is that you do have power. You do have some things you can do to find and maintain your peace. Well, first is remembering that you're not powerless to anything that's happening. Who you are can't be changed by external circumstances. Everything that's in you can't be changed because, some bad things are happening around you. What you have the power to do is to name how you're going to walk through every season that comes into your life. Are you going to stay close in your faith to say, hey, there was greater in me than is in the world? Are you going to choose that, you know what, I'm going to have peace because God says that I can have peace? I don't have to worry about the things because God goes before me. Through prayer and supplication, God can make a difference, and God will choose what to do for me, and I'll be okay with the outcome of what God chooses. And then contentment. I did a lesson on being content a while ago, I think in our 10th anniversary series, where I talked about the fact that contentment and peace walk hand in hand. Contentment is to recognize the things that in life that I am okay with, the things that are going well for me. I am okay if I have shelter and food and clothing and safety and security. I can be content that I don't have all my wants, but I have my needs. And where I don't have all my needs, that I can pray and ask those things. And I can do some things that help me get those needs. So, finding and maintaining peace, I think, is the thing that is the long term hold for us to navigate anxiety and fear. I hope that this conversation is just a starter for you, for those who might be struggling, for those who feel like, hey, this just scratched the surface. This didn't really, address my particular need. I strongly encourage you, connect with either someone in your clergy, a minister, or someone who's a religious leader, or definitely connect with a therapist who can walk you through ways that are unique to you and your situation and circumstance, and that will help you figure out how to overcome what's happening right now. One of the great things about having podcasts in a season like this is that it's something you can come back to over and over and go, okay, I think I can apply some of that to my life. I think in this season, I can see where that would be helpful. And I would love your feedback. We are just, like I said, preparing to launch into a season with the Theo Therapist Podcast, where we hope to address real life issues that you're struggling with or someone you know is struggling with in a way that bring some light and some light application to you. So I want to thank you for taking the time to listen today, for taking the time to come and visit. For those of you who joined via live stream, I thank you for being here. For those who are watching or listening at a later date, I once again thank you for being here. We are definitely set to continue the journey with the Theo Therapist Podcast. Next week, you definitely want to be here as my guest. Is actually a former student of mine, and her name is Reverend Leslie Johnson. And she's going to talk about her unique perspective of glam theology. Uh, it, I, she's the first person I know to connect those. And so make sure that you tune in next week for episode 2 of the Theo Therapist Podcast. The title for that one is Faith, Resilience, and Healing from Trauma. So make sure that you come back, visit all of our stations, our channels for the Theo Therapist Podcast, episode 2. And I'd love your feedback. Leave us a comment. Make sure that you like and subscribe and share all of our information with others so that we can continue to get this message out. Take care of yourself, be well, and have a great, great day. Okay, you're muted. I don't know how to unmute you. Oh, there you go. Yeah, nobody, right? Oh, isn't that nice of her?